Hi everyone, I'm Imogen from Course Report. We are a resource for researching which coding bootcamp is right for you. We have a directory of different coding schools, a blog, and interviews with founders, instructors, and students, all to help you work out which bootcamp you want to go to. Today, I'm speaking with Anthony Hughes, the co-founder and CEO of a coding bootcamp called Tech Elevator. Tech Elevator already has a number of campuses in Ohio and in Pennsylvania, but this year they are launching a new campus in Detroit, Michigan. So Anthony is going to answer all of our questions about the new campus, what the tech scene is like in Detroit, and what sort of jobs students might be able to land in Detroit when they graduate. So Anthony, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks very much for having me.
So for some context for our viewers, we know that you're the CEO and co-founder of Tech Elevator, but perhaps you can tell us a bit more about your background and your role at Tech Elevator.
Sure. So I came to the technology space actually in software consulting. So I used to work in business development for a custom application development company. We would build applications for large companies, help them solve their business problems, and in the process, I got to know the software developers who we would deploy against the projects and really admired the work that they were doing and how they were helping change businesses. From there, I actually got recruited into a role in economic development. I worked for a nationally recognized organization by the name of Jumpstart. And I was recruited there to build an entrepreneurial mentoring program to help up-and-coming entrepreneurs in the greater Cleveland area through active mentorship, support helping them build their teams, matching, getting product market fit. And it was in my role in economic development at Jumpstart that I recognized the severe shortages of tech talent that we were seeing in our region. This was something that was happening really across the region. It was throttling the growth of the startup ecosystem, but it was also, the more I sort of dug into it, the more I recognized that it was throttling the growth of some of the big companies in the area, companies like Progressive Insurance, a nationally known insurance company, who actually decided to open a dev center in Colorado Springs because they were frustrated with the lack of technology talent available to them in Northeast Ohio. So it was really there that I started to see the opportunity to close the skills gap, to start to transform the workforce, and that's when I got into the coding bootcamp industry.
That's awesome. Thanks for explaining that. That's so cool to hear how Tech Elevator sort of started as well. So yeah, and the topic of this video. So why is Tech Elevator opening a campus in Detroit?
So I think the first thing about when we look to expand and when we look to open a new location really comes down to supply-demand mismatch. And so if you look at the number of job openings in Michigan, and if you look at the number of advertised positions last year in 2018, there were 20,500 software developer positions advertised in Southeast Michigan. And the area four-year institutions only produced about 1,100 computer science bachelors. So, we look at the supply-demand mismatch as sort of an opportunity for us to come in and be additive to driving digital literacy in a region. So that's probably the first thing. So the economic opportunity for us is really we get to build an exciting business and solve a major problem in the regions and the communities that we're in. The other factor is this has really been a focus. This region, the region of the Rust Belt, the Midwest, has really been a focus for our business. We really believe in the power of human potential. We believe in the ability for communities like Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Detroit to reinvent themselves in the modern economy. But that's going to come through skills that the workforce will have to sort of capture this opportunity. So for us to be able to expand, to be within the same region, to help these communities sort of realize their potential in the digital economy is a really exciting opportunity for us.
That's awesome. And then I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more specifically about the tech scene in Detroit and how it's kind of changed in recent years.
I think one of the things that, folks who haven't been to Detroit have a perception around what Detroit is. There's definitely been a narrative kind of in the media, a city that went bankrupt, a city that's sort of struggling with decline. But what we're actually seeing in Detroit is a very different narrative to that. We're seeing this incredible renaissance of a city that has such a rich history of innovation. There are established companies that have been there for over a century, the automotive manufacturers, but what was sort of Motor City is now becoming Mobility City. So there were more patents filed in Michigan around mobility than anywhere else in the country. We're seeing really interesting companies spring up around mobility. We're seeing sort of this drive to digitization, as well as a large network of established companies increasingly reliant on technology to drive their business. So there's a great ecosystem evolving and a great community evolving around it, whether that's meetups and networking opportunities. But there's this real sense of the possibility in Detroit as Quicken Loans relocated its headquarters downtown. They've grown from 1,700 workers relocated to 17,000 and now working out of downtown. And there's just this incredible energy, sort of rebirth of the heart of the region, which is sort of downtown Detroit, and how that's sort of spreading out throughout the region more broadly. So it's a great tech scene with a huge upside as well.
That's awesome how much it's kind of grown and changed recently. And then I know that there's at least one coding bootcamp that's been there for a while in Detroit. And I was wondering what will make Tech Elevator stand out amongst that competition?
Sure. So when you look at kind of that supply-demand mismatch that I spoke to, 20,500 developer roles posted and just 1,100 CS degrees, there is absolutely room for more players in the space to help close that skills gap. And so, when we enter into different markets, we humbly submit that the model that we have has been highly effective as a workforce catalyst in other markets, but we're not here to displace anybody. We're here to be complementary, to be additive. So it's a full sort of spectrum of educational resources that a region needs to sort of realize its potential, investing in K through 12, expanding and amplifying the output of computer science degrees, and then successful programs that focus on sort of last mile training and workforce transformation. So, what I would say is for anybody that's sort of looking to compare us with any of the players that are operating in the space in Detroit, I would encourage them to dig deep and to look at, all the factors that sort of drive a decision-making process. Investing in a boot camp has great return on investment, but it's still not an insignificant investment. So, what I would encourage anybody to do is take a look at all the players and get a sense of what makes sense for you as an individual and what resonates with you most. What I can say is that in all of the markets that we've entered into, we haven't been the first boot camp in any market. In Cleveland, we weren't the first. I believe there were 3 here before we opened up Tech Elevator. In Columbus, I think Dev Bootcamp had a brief dalliance with the market. In Cincinnati, there was a player, and in Pittsburgh, there was a player. In all of the markets, what we've done is we've sort of emerged as the premier player. And that really comes down to execution and a focus on quality in everything that we do. The discipline to, bring in the right students into the mix, to make sure that people can be set up for success as they enter into the program, the quality of the instructors that we have in the program, the experience they bring to the table, and then really, I think a huge differentiator for us is the career development and career readiness that we do that's earned us a top spot in terms of placement performance on a national level. So again, everybody should take a look at boot camps, through their own lens. But I think those are some things that folks really should dig into, and that the outcomes of boot camps and just this outcomes-based education, I think, is really an exciting development for people as they think about reinventing their careers.
Tech Elevator seems to be expanding, quite regularly, and I'm wondering what are you actually doing that allows the business to continue expanding like this?
So I don't think there's anything revolutionary about what we do. It really comes down to a focus on quality in every aspect of the process. So, if you look at our outcomes, we have a 93% graduation rate and a 91% job placement rate within 180 days of graduating. And those numbers are validated by SIR, the Council on Integrity and Results Reporting, and they're also audited and validated through a third party. So we're a big believer in transparency, and those results put us at the absolute top in terms of performance in the industry. So how do we get there? Well, it's really in sweating the details. It's really in focusing on quality in everything that we do. So when it comes down to it, we don't want to accept money from somebody who wants to come into our program if we don't believe that they can be successful in the program. So how do we do that? We do that through aptitude testing as well as through behavioral interviewing. And the idea is that anybody that we accept into the program, we're absolutely committed to seeing them get into a role in technology. So we have to kind of work with the raw materials, and I think our students really respect us for that. And I think even the folks that we've said, hey, why don't you wait 6 months? Why don't you do some self-study? Come back and talk to us. I think they ultimately appreciate that because it's focused on getting them the best outcomes at the end of the process. I think the people are a huge driver of our business. Everybody that's involved in Tech Elevator, this is more than just a job. This is a true passion. I think we all draw immense satisfaction from seeing people realize their fullest potential, seeing people transition from jobs that, they just showed up to, that they weren't passionate about, sometimes that they dreaded getting out of bed in the morning for. And then when they come back to us as alumni, they're truly thankful for sort of not just the change in their career, but what that means in their lives and sort of the broader impact on their life trajectory. Our instructors have 20 years experience. We recruit from industry. I think that's a major differentiator for us. We really focus on bringing people in who can sort of connect the theory of computer science with the practical application of it in the workplace. We've got instructors. My co-founder was the architect of Pay.gov. That's a system that processes $150 billion a year for the US Treasury. We've got folks who have graduated from the top of their class at Carnegie Mellon and gone to Nike and Deloitte and Intel, folks who've architected systems for KeyBank and Nationwide, folks who've worked for Hewlett-Packard Financial. So really incredible backgrounds. And I think, when you consider the fact that, coding boot camps are intensive, short form, and very much designed to drive an outcome, a career-based outcome. It's the sort of cognitive equivalent of climbing a mountain, learning to code, in our case, in 14 weeks. And it really matters who your trail guides are in that process. And so that has really helped us and really differentiated us. And I think probably the biggest thing that has helped us continue to grow and have students really be drawn to us is the fact that we said when we founded the company, are people coming to us to learn how to code, or are they coming to us to get a job in technology, and learning how to code as the means to the end? And it's really the latter if you think about it. People want career transformation, and we're the conduit to doing that. And so our pathway program has been something that has driven that career readiness curriculum, getting people ready for the jobs, plugging them into the hiring networks. And that's really helped continue to differentiate us and continue to help us sort of build on our reputation as we've expanded the network of campuses that we have throughout the Midwest.
That all makes total sense. That's awesome that you have such a great collection of people and instructors working with you. And then back to the Detroit campus itself. I was wondering if you could tell me about the neighborhood that the campus is going to be in and why you chose that particular area.
Yeah, so we're going to be located in an area called Midtown, which is just minutes from downtown. It's got a great public transportation system, but it's a part of Detroit that's really enjoying a great renaissance. So the area we're in, housed, I think, just 2 blocks from where we are, the first Model T Ford rolled off the production line. It's an area that has a ton of sort of history of innovation. It's close to the Wayne State campus. And there are startups founding in the area. There are tech companies relocating to sort of participate in the energy of the area. It's a really great spot to be in. It's a part of town that's really enjoying a boom, if you will, around development. So we're excited to be there.
That sounds like a really cool area. That's awesome. And then what is the Detroit classroom going to be like? Like, is it in a co-working space, and what sort of amenities will there be for students?
So we're going to be located in an organization called TechTown. TechTown is an entrepreneurial tech hub, tech-based entrepreneurial development. So they've got hundreds of startups that are working out of the space, 5 floors, somewhere around a couple 100,000 square feet of space. And Tech Elevator have dedicated classroom space in TechTown and some dedicated office space as well. So, students will have access 24/7 to the facility. There's free parking there, which is a huge benefit in Detroit. Particularly downtown, parking can get very expensive. And the space itself has room for huddling, some great meeting spaces, some great event spaces. So it's a space, free coffee every day. It's a space that very much sort of flexes to the needs of our students who come from all different backgrounds and sort of stages in life, if you will. But it's also a space that flexes really well to the needs of Tech Elevator. We might be at a regular cadence of just sort of teaching classes out of our classroom, and then we may want to have big events that we have coming through, whether those are career-based events or events that we host for the community. And so the great thing about TechTown is it sort of flexes up for that and down as needed. And it's a great opportunity for our students to plug straight into a technology community and be part of this exciting sort of ecosystem that's developing in Detroit.
That's awesome. That's so cool that there's going to be other exciting things going on right there. And then what tracks or languages have you decided you're going to be teaching in Detroit? Like, are they going to be the same as what you're teaching at the other campuses?
So we'll be teaching .NET and Java. So those are the tracks that we teach at our other campuses. Why do we teach those tracks? Well, those are the most in-demand programming languages throughout the Midwest. They're very popular at enterprise levels, who are big hiring partners of ours. And frankly, these are curriculum that we've developed and honed and iterated continuously, with the 4 preceding campuses. So, we've made literally thousands of changes over time to these, responding to the feedback from our hiring network and our hiring partners. So, they're ready to go. They've been proven and iterated. So it makes sense for us to deliver those. The hiring needs are very similar to our other cities. The other thing that I would say, though, is, coming through the Tech Elevator program, our fundamental purpose is to teach you how to become a programmer, not necessarily teach you to become a .NET programmer or a Java programmer. We just want to make sure the languages that we're teaching optimize placement opportunities and sort of close that sort of chasm, or narrow the chasm for the employers in terms of comfort to hire. However, we've graduated students who are working in predominantly, in Python or PHP. We've got folks who are in Ruby. And the biggest hump to get over for anyone entering into the field is learning the first language. But if you fast forward, 10 years into your career, you should have acquired quite a few different languages over time. So, what we're really looking for, and particularly around our behavioral interviewing, is that sort of growth orientation, that passion for learning, the excitement to sort of adapt and adopt and learn new technologies.
That all makes total sense. And then what will the student-instructor ratio be? Like, how many instructors or mentors will you have on campus, and how many students can you accommodate there?
Yeah, so a big focus of Tech Elevator, particularly kind of in line with what I was saying earlier about the experienced instructors and access to practitioners from industry, is keeping a low instructor to student ratio. So sort of the ratio that we aim for is 1 instructor to 12 students, which, if you think about kind of a CS degree and a large lecture hall with 100 kids in, you're really getting that, one-on-one attention, access to your instructors. And so we really believe in the value of that ratio, particularly when we look at the intensity of the learning experience. We will probably, we expect that the Detroit market, based on the demand that we're seeing from students and based on the demand that we're seeing from our hiring partners, we expect to see the Detroit market probably scale up to about 200 students a year and maybe beyond that. I mean, it really is a very significant tech market. But we always, as we enter into any market, we always start small, very much focused on extra attention for cohort 0, and really focusing on making a great first impression with the hiring market. You also talked about mentors. My background working in economic development, I founded an entrepreneurial mentoring program in partnership with MIT. So, when we founded Tech Elevator, we very much focused on bringing mentoring in. What does that look like? Well, first and foremost, our instructors have to be mentors at their core. They have to feel, a great sense of satisfaction mentoring the students, taking personal interest in them. But we also bring in folks from industry, from our hiring partners, to participate in the educational experience. Mock technical interviews, mock behavioral interviews, panel discussions talking about careers in software development. So we'll have dozens of volunteer mentors from the community actively engaged in the educational experience as well.
Oh, that's so cool that you're going to have local mentors. Very awesome. And then who would you say is the ideal student for the Tech Elevator Detroit program? Like, if somebody's thinking about am I the right person for the program, how will they know? Yeah,
so I think I can give you a sense of sort of what the student profile is that we've seen, but I think, the diversity of the backgrounds of people that have come to us is broad. We've seen people with a high school diploma all the way through to a PhD, and even an MD came through one of our programs. We've seen people aged 18 come through our program, all the way through to we placed a 62-year-old at Progressive Insurance. But the sweet spot is sort of that 25 to 35 kind of age range. And these are individuals who are, they're bright, they're really smart, they're in jobs that they don't feel challenged in. They see opportunities to improve through problem solving. They see opportunities to impact, but they don't really have channels or paths that they can go down in their career to sort of realize sort of their own vision of where they want to be. So, the Tech Elevator students that we see come through, they're all problem solvers. They love learning. They get a real kick out of learning new things, about putting it into practice. They love working with other people. I think there's a sort of a common misunderstanding that software development is sort of a heads down, sort of, banging away at keys, but really it's very much about problem solving in business, sort of wrangling tech to solve the problems of business or even government or, nonprofits. So these are people that are smart. They know they have more to give and more to sort of benefit from in their careers, and they ultimately decide to sort of stop the bus and get off where they are right now, invest in themselves, make a commitment to themselves, and then sort of plug back into these awesome and high growth opportunities in technology.
Great, yeah, thanks for that. And then you've mentioned before some of the sorts of companies that are in Detroit. But what sort of companies are actually hiring junior developers in Detroit? Are they big companies? Are they small startups? And maybe you could give some examples.
Yeah, I think it runs the gamut. I mean, the obvious companies that anyone's going to associate with Detroit are the big three. So GM, Ford, Fiat Chrysler, and those organizations are hiring junior developers, so bootcamp graduates. We're also seeing a really great sort of growth of what's called the family of companies. So anyone in the Midwest knows who Dan Gilbert is. He's the owner of the Cavs, but he's also very notably the founder of Quicken Loans, which is now, I think, the nation's largest mortgage originator, and that's been a huge boon to downtown Detroit. And it's a very much a tech-driven company. And around that is a whole family of companies like Detroit Labs, Rocket Fiber, StockX, Fatheads. These are all sort of the Gilbert family of companies that are driving a renaissance in Detroit. You've got the big three have also been huge consumers of kind of advertising and marketing services. So you've seen, Facebook, and I think there was just an announcement around Twitter and Google sort of put, toeholds into the market. So tech companies are making commitments to Detroit. And then, all of the sort of tier, 1 and 2 and 3 suppliers, companies like, Bosch, which is a German company, which is super interesting and has a massive R&D budget. It's doing some really cool things, and autonomous driving, companies like May Mobility. And then there's a company, Duo Security, that just sold to Cisco for $2.3 billion. So you've got, unicorns in the region. You've got, all of the mobility sort of technology and autonomous driving that's starting. So it's a very exciting time right now in Detroit, both at the startup level as well as some, on a big company level. All of this momentum that they have, though, coming back to kind of the why of Tech Elevator, our desire to elevate people, companies, and communities, all of it comes back to fueling the growth of these companies with technology talent. So we're really excited to be participating in the ecosystem.
That's awesome. Wow, that's a lot of companies. And just on the off chance, do you happen to have any Tech Elevator grads from another campus who has found a job in Detroit?
We actually have Tech Elevator graduates who've come to us from Detroit. So what's been really interesting, and I should have mentioned this earlier, as we sort of measure the markets that are around us, we measure the interest from those markets. And so we've seen applications, a lot of our, we have a free online aptitude test at techelevator.com. So we've seen a lot of activity from the Detroit market over the years, and have had folks actually relocate to Cleveland to get access to, I think, the quality of our programming. And some folks have actually stayed, and other folks have sort of boomeranged back to the city as well. So it's going to be nice to see some old faces as we come back into the community as well.
That's awesome to kind of already have your community slightly established when you arrive. Very cool.
Yeah.
And so you've mentioned the Pathway program a little bit already, Tech Elevator's career prep module. And I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about how that program is going to be adapted to sort of fit the Detroit tech scene.
So the Pathway program is sort of part and parcel of our entire offering. So, when we look at sort of the process of taking somebody from a non-technical individual to a code-ready, junior software developer ready to add value from day one, it's a process of polishing both sides of the coin. The technical requirements have to match with the job requirements, and then the soft skills and career readiness, that's sort of the kind of the final part that you need to navigate through the job search and ultimately landing the job. And so we will deliver the identical curriculum in Detroit that's been so successful in all of our other markets. However, there are sort of adjustments that take place based on who the hiring partners are in the market. But that really comes more down to content. And so it's the content of the Pathway program is sort of driven by the insights that, panelists that come from companies will bring. We have what we call showcases, where companies come in and they present to our students about the career opportunities. They buy them lunch. And so obviously there will be different participants. We've already been on the ground and meeting with hiring partners in the market. And so we've already got companies who have committed to coming in and talking to our students or participating in mentoring or mock technical interviews. We're big believers in sort of building the momentum, even way before we've started. And that's run by a dedicated person on campus called our Pathway Program Director, who curates the program, who interacts with the hiring partners and brings them in for showcases, who coaches the students on an individual basis to really sort of refine and form their narrative, and ultimately who manages our hiring network, of which we now have nearly 300 companies who have hired from us in the vast majority of cases multiple times. So that's a huge differentiator for Tech Elevator. And I would encourage anyone who's watching this to take some time to go on Course Report and look at our reviews and see what our students say about the Pathway program. Many people sort of think about it as sort of a box, career development as a box that gets checked. But really for Tech Elevator, it is inseparable. It is part of the product. And the product for us is getting people jobs in technology. So we're very excited to bring that along with us.
Thanks for explaining that. That's fascinating how that all works. And then for aspiring developers who are in Detroit, what sort of meetups would you recommend for complete beginners who want to kind of get a taste of coding?
So I think there's a ton of really interesting meetups in Detroit. There's a very healthy sort of meetup ecosystem, and this is, I think, the case in many different markets because software development is a lifelong learning process, and so the community comes together and supports each other. So there are organizations like the JavaScript users group, the Great Lakes.net group. There are organizations at TechTown who help people in sort of the early discovery process. I would also encourage them to look at some of the free resources that are online. So, code.org, some of the free courses offered by some of the universities through sort of MOOCs. Go out there, get a feel for it, see if it's something that gets you excited, see if you enjoy seeing, sitting down there and sort of struggling through problems and challenges and then seeing, your work produce a result on the screen. That kind of aha moment feel is a pretty good indicator that you're going to like doing this stuff. But also think about yourself and how you have interacted, maybe if you've been working for a few years, how you've interacted with your job. Are there technology tools that you've found yourself drawn to? Are you constantly thinking about how to do things more efficiently and effectively? Have you built wicked spreadsheets to sort of manage processes? There's a good sense that you are a problem solver who likes to sort of wrangle technology to solve problems. We'll have a series of open houses coming up. I believe there's one coming up next week. So definitely would encourage folks to come to the campus to see what we're doing, to experience TechTown, to meet some of our team. And then Tech Elevator hosts Learn to Code meetups as well throughout the course of the year, very much designed to give people a taste. Our position is we don't want anybody to start the program if they're not committed to doing it, because you have to be committed. It's going to be an intense experience. It's going to be an exhilarating experience. You'll probably come back with a newfound respect of what you're capable of, but you've got to be ready for the process. So I think going through that exploration is a really valuable exercise as well.
That's awesome. That's great. Thanks so much for all those suggestions. I think that will be very helpful. Well, that's all of my questions now, Anthony. Is there anything else you wanted to add about Tech Elevator or the Detroit campus?
I think all I would add is, I would encourage folks to come and meet us, come and hear from us directly about how we do things differently. We're always excited to talk to people, no matter sort of what stage of discovery, whether they want to do it this summer for our upcoming cohort, which starts on May 28th, or sometime down the line and they're in the early stages of discovery. It's always incredibly exciting to meet people who are getting ready to make a big investment in themselves, who want to take their careers to the next level. So that's great.
Well, thank you so much, Anthony, for joining me today. It's been really great to talk about the Detroit campus. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. All the best for the first cohort. I hope it goes really well.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be here.